Hello everybody, here we are again, and we're going to do something a little bit similar to last week's, in the sense that you are going to draw an image and then metamorphosize it into something else. So I'm suggesting for this task you use a set of keys. Doesn't matter if you've only got sort of 2 or 3 keys on, it doesn't matter, because what you can do is you can draw one key more than twice. So you're just going to start off on a big key thing like this. You can perhaps sort of space them out a little bit. Key fobs will be quite useful as well. Okay, so you can, doesn't really matter how big you draw this, because this is just the preparatory work. So I'm just going to start off by drawing this one. It doesn't matter, because you're going to metamorphosize it, doesn't matter if it's not incredibly accurate. So do bear that in mind. And if you wanted to make your drawing a little bit more dynamic, you could actually try to make it in continuous line drawing. So that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, to make it a little bit more sort of interesting to look at. So I'm going to try and draw the whole of the rest of the thing without actually taking my pencil off the paper, so you end up with these sort of interesting lines here. Okay, so that's going to go around there, whoops, and then come out that side. And what am I going to do next? I'm going to draw the loop and then this key here. So carry on drawing the whole thing, fill your page, and like I say, it doesn't really matter if it's not incredibly accurate. What is important is that you get some of these interesting shapes. Okay, so once you have finished that, and I'm going to use one. Which one am I going to use? I'm going to use this. Use this one as the example. It's not a continuous line, but it's you know, observational drawing of keys. What I'd like you to do then is get your viewfinder, and I want you to try and find a landscape. So these keys, they're quite good for sort of rocky mountains or hills and things like that. So have a look around, see what you can find. Look at it upside down. And see whether you can find any areas that start to actually look like landscape. Okay, so that's quite nice there. I'll take that to there. I think I need a little bit more. Right, okay, so I'm going to start off with something like that, and I am going to draw that out. I can find, oh, I'll do it on this piece of paper here. I might just turn this the wrong way around, draw it upside down, just so you can see what I'm doing. Now I've got an A3 piece of paper here, but it's up to you how big you do it. So I've got this line here. I've got some two funny little lines here, and then this sort of rectangle, and then these lines that come along here, which has got a little knobble on the end. And these lines go on here. Something like that. Okay, and then the bits at the bottom, you won't be able to see my original reference drawing, but I don't think that really matters. What I've got is 2 lines coming over here. So at the minute, that isn't incredibly landscapey, so you can go and change whatever you like. I'm really liking this here. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It could be a tree, so I'm going to turn this into a tree. Okay, like so. So that is actually now in front of this landscape that's going on in the background. So I'm going to imagine that that is carrying on there. Okay, that's very, very straight. So maybe I want to just make it a little bit more organic. So if this is a landscape and these lines are maybe hills in the distance, I'll maybe want to sort of carry those on a little bit and take those off the page like that. And this is a tree here now with maybe sort of rocks coming down across here. So that is the basis of my landscape. Right, I am going to use, we've done this already, but I'm going to use a water soluble pen to draw over all my lines. Okay, so my pen being water soluble, trying to find a little brush at the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use diluted coffee. Okay, so this is one of those little jam jarry things. So I put a teaspoon of coffee in this, a really heaps teaspoon of coffee granules, and then just put a little bit of water in it. So there's not an awful lot in there. So if you imagine if you're doing that in the bottom of your teacup, you're not going to add an awful lot of water. And if I dip my brush in there and show you on here, I'll give it a bit of a stir actually, because I think it does settle a bit, but that's the colour that we've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the ink with my coffee. Some of the areas I can just use the coffee, and when I go into the ink will dissolve as well, and I will have the coffee colour, and I will have the ink, the colour that comes out the ink, depending on what sort of water soluble pen you have. Sometimes they can go two tones. Sometimes you can get a pink and a blue. Sometimes they're a little bit greeny when you dissolve the ink. Sometimes they're black. Sometimes they are just a nice sort of dark blue. It all varies as to the make of the pen that you use. So you don't know what sort of colours you're going to get. But anyway, you get the idea. So you're using the coffee to dilute the ink, but also to bring in some colour into your artwork. Now if you wanted an area to be really, really dark, you could either do lots of cross hatching on your picture, or you could actually do as I've done here and make yourself a little, if you like, palette of the ink here. So you can get a little bit of water on there, and then you can start to build up the colours that you have using that, dipping into that and using that as your sort of paint palette. Think about all the different marks that you can make with the brush. So here obviously I've been sort of just sploshing it on and not worrying too much about a sort of even coverage. So we've got the sort of dappled foliage. This is interesting, it's starting to run, we're getting some nice marks there. But you know, if you're doing can you see that? Oh, I need to move it. Oh, hold on. Right, there you go. So yeah, in the foreground you might want to have some sort of marks like this. You might want to maybe show areas that look like pebbles. You might want to do a little bit of this sort of thing. You might want to get a big messy amount on there and just let it run. You could actually, if you've got some salt, you could sprinkle some salt onto it and watch what happens. But basically I want you to start to paint into this using coffee on the ink that's dissolving from what you've been using. When this is dry, then you can start to actually work into it with some white. You could use white ink, you could use a white pen, you could use a Tipex pen, white chalk, so anything that you've got that's white, you could have a go. Now this is from a different topic, so don't look, obviously it's still working with coffee, but it was a different task that was set to a different group. I just wanted to, this is ink. Ooh, yes, there is some, I thought it had all dried out then, but it's okay. But yeah, this is white acrylic ink, and I've let this area obviously dry, and then you can just sort of work into it to add detail and areas. You can also, once that coffee is dry, do make sure it's dry. If it's not dry and you start working back into it with your pen, you'll actually ruin the nib on the pen. They really don't like working on wet surfaces. Right, so when it is dry, if you wanted to, you could actually start to go around areas where you've put the coffee on, just to add a little bit more sort of detail. That can be quite an effective way of working, by outlining those areas. Okay, and you can obviously just keep working in your detail. Okay, right, so that is what I would like you to do. Okay, so if you start off with your observational key drawing, take a section of it, turn it into a landscape, and then use water-soluble ink and coffee to actually paint it. Okay, just gives us, I don't know, it's just a little bit different. I quite like the whole notion of working with the coffee colour, the sepia sort of colour. I think it's quite pleasing on the eye, and where your ink dissolves into it as well, that can look quite effective. So yeah, have a play and let me know what you come up with. Bye.